do this in absolute live stream, which is kind of scary,
It's
but
very
at the
scary.
same time, we're doing it. We're endeavoring. We're even going to share a video today that hopefully everything works right. But I think we can pull it off. What do you think, Micah?
I think so. I'm at least hopeful. Let me put it
Because
that way.
you have supreme confidence in my techie abilities, of course.
That's, you know what, Emilio, we shouldn't start off with lies.
Tell the truth, shout at the devil.
Exactly.
Well, it's been a while. We haven't done a whole lot of content here lately. I've been very busy, actually. Micah, I think we should maybe start the show. I want to share a little bit about what I'm working on, and then we can kind of dive into our subject today.
Yeah.
Because I've been working on a writing project. I've written a couple books in the past. A lot of fun. I love writing. I love studying. I love all that. But I have taken on this reform path content, and I've decided to really put it all down and format it for a book. And tell you what, right now, working through Reformed Trinitarianism, which
Yeah.
is the first subject in the Reform Path material. For those of you that don't know, go back to our playlist, look up the Reform Path, and you can work through the, I don't know what, 8 hours of content or whatever it is there, Micah,
Something
where
like
you
that.
can walk through exactly what I've been putting together in terms of a organic, unified, sort of systematic approach to those 5 subjects that are so important for Reformed theology, that I think right now are so relevant and so incredibly important for people who are developing Reformed theology, studying Reformed theology, and the kaleidoscope of things that are out there, Micah. There's everything under the sun is out there in terms of Reformed theology, and everybody's putting out their own content on whatever, whether it's covenant theology, apologetics. Matter of fact, a new book just came out by Keith Matheson, critiquing Cornelius Van Til
Hmm.
and presuppositional apologetics, a book that some people advised him not to write, but he wrote anyway. I've been working through that book, and it's kind of the same old criticisms that I've seen in the past. Nothing substantial, in my opinion, in terms of the Van Tilian conception of apologetics. But it just shows you the approach to apologetics, the approach to eschatology, the
Right.
approach to biblical theology, the approach to covenant theology. These kind of ideas that I think need to be homogenized, that need to be brought together, unified, put into a system. And it all begins with the Trinity. It all begins with Reformed Trinitarianism, which is a response, Micah, to a lot of the doctrine of God material that people can find out there in circulation today, coming from more of a Thomistic perspective and more of an evangelical Calvinist perspective that I believe tends to be more mutualist. In other words, at some point, whether it's Bruce Ware, whether it's Wayne Grudem, whether it's D.A. Carson, whether it's, all these different authors, at some point in their writing or their concept of the Trinity and the doctrine of God, in my opinion, and in the opinion of other Reformed authors and especially theologians and such, there is a mutualist error that's going on in their writings, and probably that has been pointed out by that's been pointed out better from nobody else than James Dozal, All That Is in God, to point out the mutualist error and
Right.
the denial of divine simplicity, aseity, immutability, and those kinds of things. And so just kind of approaching that conversation, approaching that subject, and bringing in all of the relevant material that needs to be talked about when you are responding to different deficiencies in the doctrine of the Trinity that people are engaged in today, and that's out there in the church. Like I said, everything's from evangelicals their hyper-relational theology, right? Where hyper-relational theology is something I spent considerable time writing so far in the chapters that I'm developing. A hyper-relational theology is what you're going to get at the popular level, where people are calling for God to be in this life with us, in time with
Right.
us, time bound. I like to say God is in the back seat in taking the ride of life with us, and he's excited to see what's ahead. It's almost like God is learning right next to us in this life. He is an observer, and that's how bad people want. So there's the denial of anthropomorphic language. There's a denial of anthropomorphic categories, and there's an abuse of anthropomorphic language, such that all of the language in Scripture, especially the Old Testament, about God changing his mind, relenting, God revealing himself in such a way where it seems as if God doesn't know the facts, or he doesn't know the answer to his own questions, things like that.
Yeah.
So all of those issues need to be responded to, and Reformed Trinitarianism is where we have to respond. So that's what I've been working on very, very intensely. The literature and the reading that goes into that subject right there, I mean, is very intense. It's very broad. I just got done doing a whole section in my book on modernism, which is the theology of, especially of Karl Barth, and Barthianism, which a lot of folks today, even in Reformed circles, people are really not really familiar with Barth's thought. And so just a lot. It's a lot to get into, but the doctrine of the Trinity is foundational to the entire enterprise of our theology. So just a little bit of an update as far as what I've been developing, what I've been talking about. But again, if you haven't even seen any of this content, go to the playlist, The Reformed Path on Red Grace Media, YouTube, and you'll get all the content there. So
Yeah, I'm just looking forward to whenever you finish this, high level academic work, that you then turn and do the Trinitarianism for Dummies book, the companion piece for those of us
yeah,
who need that little extra, talking down to,
yeah,
essentially.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
well,
Yeah, no, 100%.
you sent me your first chapter. I've been too scared to even open it up, just because I don't.
Don't be scared, brother.
I'm going to need a dictionary and my Bible,
Yeah,
together with me. So it's
yeah,
better than, a newspaper in my Bible. Anyways, well, you ready to get into tonight's topic?
yeah.
So,
We're gonna talk a little bit about Donald Trump.
who's that? I don't know. I mean, I'm just already so tired of winning that I've already forgotten all that stuff. So,
You're gonna be
but
so tired of winning. You're gonna win bigly.
yeah. So, I mean, he's back in the White House. I mean, is this
Yeah.
a good thing? Is it something that Christians can celebrate, or is it something that we should kind of, I don't want to say, have be worrisome of, but I don't know that celebrate's the right word, but I think, be grateful is definitely
Relief.
something I feel.
Yeah, relief to some degree, right?
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to entitle this episode today, Trump, the good, the bad, the ugly, because there's much to celebrate. I would use the word celebrate to some extent, right? There's also some aspects of a Trump administration that we need to be concerned about, and then there are other aspects that are just downright bad,
Mhm.
and that as Christians we need to be at least. So I might have a little bit of an unpopular take here in comparison to others, but we're also going to play a video to kind of illustrate what I'm talking about. But as we do that, we'll kind of develop that one step at a time. But I think the first thing, Micah, is I agree. I think you shouldn't hold back as far as using the word celebrate, because think of the alternative. I mean, I had somebody on YouTube attacking me because I voted for Donald Trump, and this person on YouTube says I've lost all respect for you. Basically, I'm writing you off because you said you voted for Donald Trump. Wow. Okay, great.
Okay.
But But let's just think about it. I mean, the alternative to Donald Trump, of course, would have been something like a Harris administration, which we know what we would have gotten with 4 more years of a leftist in office, which is just full throttled leftist policies, radical globalist policies,
Right.
radical socialist policies, and the damage. Think about our country. I mean, think about the damage that 4 years of Biden did in the last, 4 years, where, I mean, think of the cultural battles. Think of the things that were being foisted upon our population. Everything from radical gender ideology to radical DEI policies that were literally threatening the public safety of everybody, because you're not putting people in place that are qualified. You're putting people in place that fit the description of what they're looking for, that
Mhm.
may or may not have anything to do with your qualifications. I mean, it's kind of insane if you think about it. I mean, you're getting brain surgery. I mean, this is all has to do, by the way, Michael, with common grace. If you're getting brain surgery or a heart procedure, the question that you should be asking is not, does this person have the right skin color? Is this person the right gender? The question you should be asking is, how qualified
Right.
is this person to open up my skull and go messing around inside?
Yeah, well, Emilio, I think we can take it just back to less than 24 hours ago now,
Yeah.
where the plane crash in Washington D.C. with an army helicopter running into a commercial flight landing at
Yep.
DCA, Ronald Reagan, and the whole first thing is that they've been understaffed because they couldn't fill their quotas for DEI stuff. So we've just seen its potential that I'm not equivocating
Yeah.
it yet to a DEI
Some
problem,
are
but
saying, someone
it
somewhere has said.
yeah, it is potential that we are seeing the first actual deaths from DEI and that kind of
Yeah, the policies
mindset.
of yeah.
That policies, those
Yeah,
policies.
no doubt. And I mean, if it's not that, it's something else.
Right.
And I mean, there's probably a million examples of what we can that will demonstrate that very point. But the reality is that's what you were about to get.
Yeah.
We were about to get full throttled, unbridled leftist policies in perpetuity. And I actually agree with Elon Musk. I believe that this election would have been the last fair election in the country because of the immigration policies and the elimination of the swing states. And so
Yeah.
there would have been no more actual elections. They would have all been decided through these immigration policies that they were putting in place. And so we're grateful and we're celebrating the fact, and Christians should celebrate the fact that by the sovereign decree of God, right? Because he exalts who he wants and he brings down who he wants. He raises one up and tears another one down. I mean, it is in his hand to do that. And for his mysterious purposes, we'll get to some of that later. He has ordained this sort of, whatever you want to call it, this reprieve, this stay, this stalling of these kind of policies and this kind of worldview to just take over in America. And I think we need to celebrate above everything, Micah. We should celebrate the doctrine of common grace. What is common grace? Common grace is any benefit. I think John Murray came close to saying something like this. And common grace is any benefit that God gives to mankind by his grace, short of redemption. Not salvific, in other words, right?
Right.
The rain and the sun that affects the righteous, the just, and the unjust. That's common grace. And sometimes common grace can be very powerful. Sometimes common grace can be very useful. And we benefit at a humanity level based on the common grace of God. Number one, I would say, Micah, probably best of all, common grace that God did not ordain the complete and total deterioration of the world into all-out anarchy. I mean, that's common grace. That's the covenant of Noah. That's God, right? What Jude talks about, that God knows how to keep, the wicked under judgment until like God knows how to restrict. That's Romans 13. God knows how to basically punish evil at the common grace level so that evildoers do not just run wild and take over the world. It may look, here's the thing, Micah, it may look like we're living in anarchy at times in this world, but the reality is we do not know true anarchy. God has not, by his grace, by his common grace, God has kept this world from divulging into total anarchy. That is the common grace of God. And he uses means to accomplish that, right? He doesn't need to come down in a pillar of fire. He doesn't need a theophany. He doesn't need to send an angel to slaughter, enemies and things like that. He can use secondary causes in order to accomplish his sovereign purpose. But I would say that is what is very good about a Trump administration, is that there is a massive reprieve and stalling of radical, insane, socialist, liberal, leftist ideas that are just would have just wreaked havoc in our society. Yeah. And to what extent has Donald Trump really affected that kind of ideology? I mean, some people are saying that the Democrat Party may not come back from this. It could be maybe decades before they ever get a chance of taking the presidency again, because their talking points, their rhetoric, their ideology, their worldview has become so universally repulsive, and it has been exposed for what it is, that maybe they don't come back for a good while, maybe a couple decades. That would be great.
Yeah, that would be great.
That would be wonderful. And hopefully that means that there's economic prosperity that comes from that. Hopefully that means there's just more common sense sanity, right, that prevails in society. Hopefully that means something good for families and, marriages and, for legislation, from the top to the bottom.
Right.
And that's a good thing. We can celebrate all of that. And I tell you what, I mean, I don't know if you watched any of Kash Patel's Senate hearing for the FBI.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. Well, I watched some of it too while I was driving, listening to it more than anything.
Yeah. Thank you for clarifying that.
I know I do put on videos while I'm driving. Sorry. But I listen more than anything. But he was just talking about how, I forgot what senator, maybe it was Josh Hawley, was talking about how that the FBI was specifically targeting religious institutions,
right,
and literally surveilling and infiltrating and spying on churches, mainly Catholic churches, was the example that was given. But I mean, man, I tell you what, I don't know if you saw Donald Trump's speech that he gave at the World Economic Forum, but he gave a speech there where he addressed the CEO of the Bank of America.
Bank of America, yeah.
And he called him out for targeting conservatives and literally shutting down their bank accounts simply because of their political views. And so that's another thing I think hopefully we can celebrate about a Trump administration, is that it may result in more religious freedom, less infringement from the government into, right, the religious life of the population, or just being targeted for nothing other than what you believe religiously. I mean, that's just not good. Again, we're dealing with the limits of a fallen world. I want people to, and this is where, Micah, I think somebody like the person that criticized me and said, look, you're a Christian, you shouldn't support anybody. Donald Trump doesn't matter. This is a fallen world. I recognize that. There's limits to all of this, right? Like there is a real issue of precedence, right? religious tolerance can very quickly become religious pluralism with a remarkable short-sighted failure of people who don't understand that not all worldviews are created equal.
Right.
And that the religious rights that you afford to Christians, let's say, don't have the same net effect
Right.
of the kind of religious rights that you would give to Muslims,
Right.
for example, because they have a different worldview, for example, that includes the concepts of jihad, for example. Very simple, right? You can see what's going on in Western Europe right now. You see what's going on in Germany right now. I mean, they are overrun. They have serious problems with the kind of Islamic immigration that they have allowed for the last 3-4 decades, and they are reaping the whirlwind, as we say. So there's limits to all of this. We celebrate it with a grain of salt. We understand that common grace only goes so far, right?
Right.
And this is where we want to resist any confusion that we could have as Christians to think salvation has come because conservatism is on the rise. We need to be very careful, and that's maybe the next thing we got to get into.
So, I think back to day 2, the day right after the inauguration, and they're at the National Cathedral, a beautiful building. I don't know if you've ever been inside of it. It's just the value that they put on the actual temple tabernacle. It's beautiful. However,
beautiful architecture.
However, Woodrow Wilson is buried there, so it could catch on fire and I wouldn't care. But specifically, this one prayer service or whatever it was supposed to be was a multi-faith
of course
prayer service.
Yeah.
So, and then of course he gets up there and gets lectured by a preacher of the diocese there for the Episcopal Church. So we'll just leave it at that. But I'm listening to what this woman said, and I'm listening to some of the conversations that I've seen going on online. But if Donald Trump's back in the White House, how could this be bad at all for any Christians?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about that. I think that we have to measure that, Micah, mainly by sort of an indirect approach to this conversation or to that topic. And that is, to me, that is the idea of what, the confusion that can come on the part of Christians equating what I call Christianism and Christianity. And Christianism, I don't know that I've heard that word anywhere other than in my own notes, but Christianism is kind of a Christian ethos that obtains in a culture through mainly external forces, whether they're political, cultural, sociological, these kinds of things, and that have absolutely nothing to do with salvation, genuine regeneration.
Right.
Because you can have externalist or external expressions of religion, including Christianity or Christianism, and yet be completely devoid of the true gospel. For example, the example you gave with the National Cathedral and this crazy, punk rock girl up there talking about transgenderism, calling herself some kind of minister or something. I mean, it just shows you this whole National Cathedral thing. If it has anything to do with the nation itself putting on some kind of religious thing, be skeptical from the outset, okay?
Yeah.
Because really what's about to head your way is some sort of Christianism,
right.
Some kind of religious talk, some kind of religiously dressed up thing, event, okay? What have you? But really has nothing to do with authentic biblical Christianity. That's my greatest concern. Because if you read, as I know you have, Micah, Christless Christianity by Michael Horton, In the last decade or so, we made a big deal out of that book because Michael Horton picked up the language of a sociologist that was characterizing Christianity in the West, and she called it moralistic therapeutic deism.
Right.
Everybody latched onto that because that was a perfect description of what we were all witnessing at the popular level, at the popular evangelical level. That's exactly what we're witnessing. We're watching moralistic, just do the right things, therapeutic, just give me a good pick-me-up. Don't teach me any doctrine or theology or expository sermons or anything like that. Just give me a good TED Talk and I'll be happy, right? And then deism. What that meant was basically live however you want. God's not really involved. He's just kind of laid down some principles for everybody to abide by, right? Some kind of, tips for healthy living or whatever, right? Maybe a little bit of spirituality to go along with your life and how you're living. But, if you want to live with your girlfriend while you go to church, I mean, what really matters is that you experience. What really matters is that you participate. What really matters is that you feel good about yourself. That's deism. God is not actually involved. Okay. He
Right.
hasn't actually broken into time and space. He hasn't actually intruded into this world through Jesus Christ. All of those things are just kind of, well, that's kind of a fundamentalist way of looking at things. We can just set that aside. As long as religion is working for you, right, and you're experiencing something positive, then you got what you're supposed to get out of religion. And of course, we identified that as false. That's a false gospel. I mean, the American gospel films were built directly against moralistic therapeutic deism. Much of the film deals with that, right?
Right.
And so what I'm saying is that moralistic therapeutic deism has gone national, and this time through the avenue of politics. Remember, even in the American gospel, and Brandon Kimber actually got flack for this because he ran a clip of Donald Trump saying, "I don't need to repent. There's nothing. Why do I need to repent?" He says, I don't have anything to repent about." So he's never broken a single commandment of God, I guess, right? He's kept the law perfectly, you see?
Lucky
And so
him.
he was pointing out that, look, and what a classic example, right? Of a guy that, we can call it God bless you religion, right? As long as you have God on the outside, as long as you say God bless, and as long as you espouse certain basic Judeo-Christian principles, everything else is just get off my back. Don't bother me with the details. That's just, that's just too puritanical. You're getting too fundamentalist. You're going overboard. That's too literalist. That's not pragmatic. And we should understand something about Donald Trump. Donald Trump, and we're going to see this here in our next point. Donald Trump, above everything, Micah, I don't know how you would describe him, but above everything to me is a pragmatic, political, expedient, a can-do kind of person, right? And to his credit, he gets things done.
Right.
And I mean, just the first week of the first day of his presidency, he
Right.
signed, I don't know what, like 200 executive orders, right? He's just signing faster. And even, I mean, the media's head's just spinning. It is quite entertaining to watch.
It's the entertainment factor is huge right now. Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone's, happy to drink the liberal tears. Okay.
I've got that mug somewhere around here.
Yeah.
So is it
But
too
he's
far?
pragmatic.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's fundamentally pragmatic. So for him, don't tell me about distinctions in theology and what people believe, Catholic, Orthodox, Christian, evangelical, who cares? Right? As long as you've got a Christmas tree and, you say Merry Christmas instead of Happy Holidays, That's all they care about. So again, it's this moralistic, and this is the word, Red Grace Media 2025. What's the word? The word for this year, the word is externalism. It is religion on the outside. It is God on the outside. And the whole notion of regeneration is being set aside, and it's being eclipsed by this sort of externalist religion. Again, this sort of religious ethos, this Christianism that is becoming very acceptable in the culture.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know about your reading of the Bible, but my reading of the Bible, Jesus says, be very careful when all men speak well of you.
Uh-huh.
Why? Because, Micah, if we truly are devoted to the preaching of sin and judgment, the exclusivity of Jesus Christ, salvation by grace through faith alone, that's still, I don't care how Christianized, conservative, Republican, I don't care, MAGA, it doesn't matter. That is still an unpopular message. It's not functional. It's not pragmatic. It's not practical. It's not useful. And therefore, it will always be despised. And so externalism is my way of summarizing what a real, true danger we face in a highly conservative, Republican-charged political ethos that is emerging in our culture. What does that mean for the true elect church of God? I mean, I want to talk about the elect church of God.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know me, Micah. I hate talking in generalities. I'm not going to lump anything in because the Bible doesn't. Because the Apostle Paul says, I do everything for the sake of the elect,
Mm-hmm.
that they may obtain salvation. And so we're not afforded the luxury by Scripture, which means by God, we are not afforded the luxury to set aside our distinctives in the interest of getting along and going with the popular notion that is so comfortable now and so acceptable. And it's remarkably concerning when all of these political pundits in the news, and now that podcasting has become mainstream media, right? I don't care who's espousing religion out there now.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not regenerate, authentic Christianity, like Billy Graham would say, ye must be born again, right? If you're no longer calling for conversion, dangerous.
So would you even go so far to say that, if we're moving on into, the good that we're seeing or we will see from the Trump administration this term, what about the ugly? Is it too much to say that there's something ugly about Donald Trump being back in the White House? I mean, I know that probably about 48% of America would absolutely say, well, yeah, that's true. But looking at it again from the biblical reformed Christian perspective, what is kind of the worst things that we could see about his presidency?
Okay, so when I think of the good, the bad, and the ugly, obviously we have to have a category for ugly. And to me, the category for ugly may not be directly, okay, it's not like you can pin this on Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but I would say at the very top of my concern is his unbridled enthusiasm regarding AI and
Right.
his desire to be the world leader in AI. And now this gets very deep, Micah, because we understand, based on what the leading tech titans are saying, that the pursuit of AGI, for those that don't know, there are 3 levels of artificial intelligence. And so here now we're going to get into some stuff. There are several levels of artificial intelligence. First is artificial narrow intelligence, ANI, which is where we're at now. That's AI that's very restricted and can do very certain specific tasks ahead of it, right? And then there's AGI, there's artificial general intelligence, which is all the craze right now, which everyone in the tech industry is trying to figure out. When will we cross that threshold where AI becomes less predictive, it becomes less linear, it becomes remarkably spontaneous, intuitive, adaptive, it can multitask, and it can understand human empathy, emotion, sarcasm, humor, those kinds of things. And we're getting remarkably dangerously close now to artificial intelligence reaching a human level of intelligence that becomes indiscernible. In other words, you can't tell the difference anymore. And this is what is known as the Turing test. For those of you that are interested in this conversation, maybe we won't get to everything here right now. Go back and watch my playlist on the new apologetics. I delve deeper into this stuff. There's probably, who knows, 11 hours of content there. The new apologetics playlist. Anyway, when you reach AGI, you're supposedly passing the Turing test. Alan Turing, 1950, put out a test that states that basically you have passed a threshold in technology where basically by no metric that we have available to us will we be able to discern the difference between human and machine-generated intelligence. That's a true passing of the Turing test. Now, according to some experts, specifically Ray Kurzweil, Eric Schmidt, even the guys we're going to play here in a second. We said we play a video. I'm going to play a video. But some of these guys, Mo Gadot, who used to work with Google, is a high engineer, developer in Google. We have not passed the Turing test yet. According to Ray Kurzweil, he believes we will do that right around 2045. And for those that don't know who Kurzweil is, I have insisted that you read Kurzweil's books, and I'm going to get into this a little bit. And Micah, just to prepare you, we'll go a little long in this broadcast. We haven't done one in a while, so even if we go over the hour mark a little bit, but this book here, The Singularity, is nearer.
Yeah, that's a
We
new one.
merge with AI.
Ugh.
Is his latest iteration of what I call Ray Kurzweil's prophecies. And the opening sentence of the book says that computation or information is consciousness. So consciousness, according to Kurzweil, is now equated with data, with information. Why is that important? Because by the end of his books, he is calling for acknowledging the self-aware, self-conscious status of machines that will legislatively be given, inevitably, he says it's inevitable, they will be granted personhood. And so why is that important? Because you have the Yuval Noah Hararis that are saying the exact same thing. Because you have the Eric Schmidts, same thing. You have all of these different authors out there, Hans Marovich being one of my favorite, kind of love-hate relationship there, who is just absolutely explicit that these super intelligent machines, see, you got to understand, for people out there, there is one idol that all of these people bow to, and that is the idol of progress. And that idol, the worship of that idol, has no limits. They see progress as the next step of evolution. And now what's going on is that there is an auto-evolutionary model. No longer is this Darwinian evolution something they even care about. All these books, I'm going to talk about this book again today, The Age of Spiritual Machines. It coincides with the video we're about to play. Lord willing, if I can play it. We could pull it off, right, Micah?
Right. No. Don't say we. If you can pull it off.
Yeah. So you're asking me what's the ugly? I would say at the very top for me, it is this full throttled endorsement of the most powerful AI mechanisms, data centers. They're investing, by the time they're done, I mean, they're just starting here. They're already verbally committing to $500 billion.
Right.
That's going to go up to $1 trillion easily. Okay. By the time they're all done with this. And where does the first data center go? Where's it going to go? Right here in Texas.
Naturally.
So it's going to be probably in Austin, because all tech stuff goes to Austin first, right? But they're going to build a data center, and they're going to build numerous, probably hundreds of these data centers all over the country, where these are massive warehouses filled with massive computers for massive computation. Okay. And the reason that we have to care about this conversation is for two reasons. Number one, you must understand AI is not an end to itself. Okay. It is part of a greater philosophy. This is what I tried to explain to Ken Ham from the Creation Museum, the Ark Encounter. And that greater philosophy is transhumanism. And that philosophy is fundamentally two things: post-enlightenment humanism and evolution. They are committed to human beings being the measure of all things. They define all things. We define this world and ourselves. We define it for ourselves. Humanity, what is man? What is human nature? All of those things. What is the teleology of the world? In other words, what's the design? What's the goal? What's the purpose? That doesn't come for these guys. That doesn't come from a book. That doesn't come from divine revelation. That comes from our own human self-referential epistemology. This is where it comes from. We are self-referential. We are the measure of all things. This is a self-predicate. We define ourselves. We measure ourselves. We basically give ourselves meaning, morals, beauty, purpose, all of these things. That's humanism. But it's also evolution. But you must understand, Micah, there's a reason. I've said this before. I'll say it over and over and over, because people are just totally uninformed about these conversations, unless you follow Reg Race Media or maybe a few others out there. This book, his new book, a number of his other books that I have all down in here, and I can bring you a stack of transhumanist books. They all do the exact same thing every single time at the beginning of each book. What is it? They tell you the story of where we came from. They always begin by recounting the process of evolution from the Big Bang, according to them, all the way up to the point where primates began using primitive tools, and it's this big fairy tale of evolution they want to tell you, all the way up to the point to where we are now. Why? Because they have to hijack the human story. so that they can condition you to receive or to accept eschatology, where the story goes. And where does it go? Self-evolution. We will self-evolve, ladies and gentlemen, based on these books. We will self-evolve in two ways. Number one, biohacking. Number two, robotics. And when I say robotics, I mean we have passed the point of where we are today in 2025, Micah. In 2025, there are two things going on simultaneously. Number one, software. Number two, hardware. And companies like NVIDIA are building the hardware. Tesla, humanoid. They're building the robot. And other companies, OpenAI, Oracle, and now DeepSeek, this just came out, Synchron, you name it. They're developing the software. But eventually, we're going to cross the point where that software and that hardware are brought together. It's exactly what Eric Schmidt, former executive of Google, said. As he has now, listen to this, Micah, he has now transitioned what? Out of Google, out of that space. What's he doing now? Building military robots. That's his new job.
That doesn't scare you.
No. So he has now joined the industrial military complex. Okay? Because he knows that the next step in the evolution of intelligence for human beings is the merger between software and hardware. Simultaneously, we are experiencing, the increase, the development of biohacking. And this is the video we have to show to substantiate that. So I'm going to share this. This video, and it's a video that is important. It's a video that you kind of get it. I'm going to follow it up, and I'm going to explain some of it here. But this is Sam Altman from OpenAI, and Donald Trump is going to ask him to elaborate on the medical benefits of AI. Here we go.
Could you just say one word? I hear so many positive things about what it's going to do for medical research and for solving things, cancer and all the different problems. How will AI help us with the fight against the various problems, diseases, etc.?
These guys can maybe share more about some of the work they're doing there. I think they'll jointly be some of the leaders about driving progress here. But I believe that as this technology progresses, we will see diseases get cured at an unprecedented rate. We will be amazed at how quickly we're curing this cancer and that one and heart disease, and what this will do for the ability to deliver very high quality healthcare, the costs, but really to cure the diseases at a rapid rate, I think will be among the most important things this technology does.
Great. Very good. Thank you.
Now, before the CEO of Oracle comes up and talks, Micah, I want to remind people that Sam Altman, according to Elon Musk, is the same person that told Elon Musk when Elon Musk was raising concerns about the power of ChatGPT and AI getting out of control.
Right.
He is the same individual that told Elon Musk, don't be such a speciesist. In other words, don't be so committed to the human species. Why? Because for Sam Altman and those like him, they are committed to the artificial species. They are committed to the digital species. They are committed to the super intelligent consciousness that is coming. That's what they're committed to. And so when I talk about philosophy, remember that I said AI is not an end to itself. AI is part of the greater transhumanist philosophy. And transhumanism is not an end to itself. It's also part of the greater post-human philosophy, a la Hans Marovich and Marvin Minsky, who did not hesitate to talk about a future beyond humans. Because super intelligent robots are the future of man's story of evolution. Period. This is not up for debate in terms of what they believe. Of course, we're Christians. We know what the Bible says. This will not happen. It will not happen. The future is not post-human. Thankfully, the future is post-sin. That's the future. So this is going to really, for Christians, going to really test your mettle as far as your commitment to biblical eschatology. But now listen, as the CEO of Oracle comes up and talks a little bit further about these medical miracles. You know, as I've been writing on this, Micah, I have two categories for this. I call it miracle tech, talking about what these guys are about to talk about, and I call it messianic tech. And the reason I call it messianic tech, because if you remember, the signs of the Messiah were designed to be what? Self-authenticating.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the way they will introduce self-authenticating technology. People ask the questions, Mike, and they think it's so theoretical, so out there, so fantastical, that I've had many people ask me, you really believe that people will just put up a computer chip in their brain? And I'm saying, if this technology gets developed in the way they are imagining it, I'm telling you that they will eventually kill you for it. There won't be a hesitation to implant it or to internalize it. They will do anything to get it. And so it's a different thing going on here. And this is why I called it the new apologetics, because just talking to a pastor the other day, and he's like, we need people developing the philosophy, Christian philosophy, the Christian response to all of this philosophically, ethically, morally, theologically, everything. And I'm like, tell me about it. Poor Micah has had to hear Emilio talk about it over and over and over. Anyway, let's play the rest of this.
So we're currently working on. Do I step on this? Okay. All right. No. I'm not that tall. I'm not that tall. Thank you, Mr. President. One of the most exciting things we're working on, using the tools that Sam and Masa are providing, is a cancer vaccine. It's very interesting. It turns out, I'll be quick, all of our cancers, cancer tumors, little fragments of those tumors float around in your blood. So you can do early cancer detection. If you can do it using AI, you can do early cancer detection with a blood test. And using AI to look at the blood test, you can find the cancers that are actually seriously threatening the person. So we can, again, cancer diagnosis using AI has the promise of just being a simple blood test. Then beyond that, once we gene sequence that cancer tumor, you can then vaccinate the person, design a vaccine for every individual person to vaccinate them against that cancer. And you can make that vaccine, that mRNA vaccine, you can make that robotically, again, using AI in about 48 hours. So imagine early cancer detection, the development of a cancer vaccine for your particular cancer aimed at you, and have that vaccine available in 48 hours. This is the promise of AI and the promise of the future.
There you go. I don't know. I think what's going to happen, Micah, is that the Christian church is going to be fundamentally challenged when they, in fact, begin to see these kind of miraculous technologies deployed, implemented, and successful. But now, Micah, I have to read you two things, because that was Larry Ellison in 2025. But this is Ray Kurzweil in 1999. Listen to what he says. He says, progress continues. No, excuse me. Let me set this up for a second. This is him telling you what's going to happen in the year 2029. Just 4 years away.
Yeah, just a heart skip it and jump away. Yeah.
And you got to remember, this is published in 99, Micah, but the research for this was going on in the 60s.
Yeah.
In the 70s. I mean, there are books that I have that way back in the 70s and 80s, and maybe farther back than that, Micah, they're using the words Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, smartphone, tablet back then. Okay, this stuff has been in the making for a long, long time. Okay. And in 1999, what does Ray Kurzweil say? He says progress continues by 2029, progress will continue in understanding and ameliorating the effects of aging. In other words, getting rid of the effect of aging as a result of a thorough understanding of the information processing processes controlled through the genetic code. The life expectancy of humans continues to increase and is now around 120 years old. So pretty much everyone by 2029 will live 120 years old. We'll all be centurions plus. He says, significant attention is being paid to the psychological ramifications of a substantially increased human lifespan. People are not going to know what to do now that you're living well over 100. There is growing recognition that continuing extension to the human life, the human lifespan, will involve further use of bionic organs, including portions of the brain. Nanobots, that's what Larry Ellison is talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Nanobots are being used exactly what Larry said. They are being used as scouts to a limited extent to repair agents in the bloodstream and as building blocks for bionic organs. That's one quote. You can rewind this video and listen to that again if you'd like. That is Spiritual Age of Machines, page 221. On page 230, according to Ray Kurzweil, as he is having a fictitious dialogue with his future self, who in the book, according to him, happens to be female. In other words, Ray Kurzweil envisions his future self as a female. Why? Because in this book, according to Kurzweil, through the use of radical nanotechnology, what he calls nanoswarms, we will become androgynous. And we will at will be able to go between male and female. Okay? He says this as his future self is having a dialogue with somebody in the past, asking about what are drugs like in 2029. He says, drugs today are genetically engineered specifically for the individual's own DNA composition. That's exactly what Larry Ellison just said. He says, Interestingly, the manufacturing process that's used is based on the protein following work that was originally designed for the nano patrols. In any event, excuse me, drugs are individually tailored and tested in a host simulation before introducing any significant volume to the actual host's body. We'll test the robots first before we put them in your body. So adverse reactions of a meaningful scale are quite rare. I can go on and on and on and on and on. And you know what's crazy, Micah? When I have this conversation, I've had it with leaders, pastors, theologians. I've had it with seminary presidents. I've had it with major ministry leaders of ministries that are worth well into the millions. And they reach a level at which, Micah, they don't want to hear anymore. And I'm just here to say we're not prepared. But when you hear Trump being so enthusiastic about AI deployment in your bloodstream, you must understand the deep philosophy behind all of this bioengineer transhumanist concepts that are, of course, every book begins with the medical front. Every book. It always begins with medicine. It always begins with curing diseases. But what does Hans Marovich say in his book, Mind Children? He says that what this leads to, according to him, one of the reasons I love Hans Marovich, like I told you, he doesn't hold back. He is not afraid to tell you where this is going as far as he's concerned. Professor at Carnegie cited in this book and in many other of Kurzweil's books. Hans Marovich is a reference. Hans Marovich says that the super intelligent machines basically will leave us behind and humanity will fade away. Total post-humanism. And so I know it's a lot to get into, but it's getting to the point, Micah, where if I can't talk to people about this, if we can't have a conversation, a deep conversation about transhumanism and what's about to be unleashed, according to Ray Kurzweil, by the year 2030, you got to remember, by the year 2045, according to Ray Kurzweil, implants will be everywhere. Neuralink, that kind of stuff will be everywhere. Elon Musk, okay, Neuralink is going to heal paralysis and these kinds of things. According to the literature, these things will become much more of a fashion statement than anything. It will be for technological fashion. It won't be because everyone's blind. It won't be because everyone's deaf and needs a computer chip to help them with their neurological disorder. It's because you're going to want to be updated with the latest data that will be piped right into your head. Okay? And the question then becomes, how much of this is really going to happen? No one knows the answer to that. But the point for us is to understand the philosophy behind it is not Christian. There are actually some Christians out there that are saying, no. We need to embrace transhumanism. And we need to use it as we genetically augment our bodies so that we can further God's purpose.
Interesting. So let me kind of ask.
Thank you, Micah, for being so patient and just letting me go on. But I don't know any other way to do it other than to just give us the information.
You kind of laid this out as this could be the ugly nature of what we get from a Trump administration, but is it any better than what we would have gotten from a continuation of the Biden or Harris administration, or would it be worse with him?
Great question. Matter of fact, Biden signed an executive order, a year ago, 2 years ago, for biohacking directly from whitehouse.gov. In the opening paragraph, the official statement: we will design human cells the way that we program computers. Some people that are really invested in transhumanist conversations and stuff said that was the darkest day in American history, and no one even batted an eye. Oh, no. There is a much deeper conversation here, brother, regarding these issues and how it relates to eschatology. It is my conviction, unless I can be shown otherwise, that this is God's decreed purpose, that man has this purpose to pursue these things until they can't pursue it anymore. The way that I put it to folks is, we will build Babel till we can't build it anymore, till God says no more.
Right.
That's it. That this far, no further. Right. So there is a deep biblical theology, a deep eschatology involved in all of this. But to answer the question simply, no, this would have happened with Trump or not. But since we're talking about Trump, it is this incredible full-scale bent towards all things AI. And I think initially, I don't think Trump's got a choice to some degree. The CEO of Google, Sundar Pichai, has told Mo Gadot, a former employee at the highest levels of AI there, he can't stop. He cannot stop the progress of what they're doing because China will not stop.
Right.
And so they have to keep going. And so, look, there's other things that we could talk about with regard to this, but I know we're coming close to our time where we got to go. But it's just good to be back. It's good to do a broadcast. But these are just some of my thoughts. Again, maybe not conventional, maybe not what you thought, maybe not popular, but these are things that I'm discerning, that I'm concerned about, and that I think for the next 20 years, 25 years, we need to talk about. Because all the tech guys right now, I don't know if you've kind of heard here lately in the news, Micah, but there's been kind of a clamoring recently where they're all kind of like unanimously saying that what's about to be unleashed in the next couple of years is going to kind of blow your mind.
Oh, yeah.
So they're putting that out there. You know how you see the mainstream media and they all have the same talking, they all mysteriously have the same talking points that day, you know? I mean, that's kind of like what's going on with the tech folks right now.
Well, I mean, it's an interesting thing because, like, I hear you say, it doesn't matter really the administration. This is the path that we're on, and this is the path that God has decreed. And I kind of, going back to the pragmatic side of Trump, I kind of look at him saying, and even the head of Google that you just referenced saying, if we don't do it, somebody else will with really evil intent. So I kind of think that that's a good pragmatic approach to it, but still it's, when we stop becoming image bearers of God, that's got to be the end.
Yeah, and so what needs to happen here is that we need to really understand the doctrine of the image of God. Because remember, Micah, what's our argument as Christians regarding, to quote the Westminster Confession?
Oh, gosh.
What is our argument? What is our argument to make the case, as the Westminster Confession says, that we were created a reasonable soul? What's our argument? You can't put it in a lab. It is based on revelation. But if consciousness becomes the operative term for personhood, how do we protect or guard around granting personhood to something that is non-human, non-biological, or organic? That's the point they're all making. Is he says in one of his summaries that humans at some point will become the minority of intelligent beings in the world. Crazy.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
so, you know, to kind of take it out of the level, Micah, of the sensational, because people can listen to this. I mean, I had a pastor tell me, most people will think you're crazy. This is conspiracy theories. It's Alex Jones or whatever, whoever your conspiracy theorist is. This is just crazy. You know, you're talking sci-fi. The problem is there's only one problem, and what actually might have been the deciding factor for me to go from something like that opinion to actually now buying these books, these technical manuals on transhumanism, and it's the money.
Mm-hmm.
Google, Microsoft, OpenAI, all of these companies, they don't spend, NVIDIA goes on and on. They don't spend billions and billions. You take them all together, you don't spend trillions of dollars on sensationalism. You spend it on something you think is obtainable.
Right.
Yeah.
Which I think that speaks right there to the pragmatic heart of Donald Trump.
Yeah. So
So
maybe the two things that we talked about today, externalism, moralism, don't confuse that with the kingdom of God and salvation.
mm-hmm.
This enthusiasm towards AI and biohacking is part of a larger transhumanist philosophy that is fundamentally anti-Christian, period.
Yeah.
So, good deal.
Well,
It's great being with you tonight.
Good deal. Kind of frightening deal. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Provocative title. So
oh boy, yeah. So hopefully this live stream went off without a hitch and everything was cool. But
I am just, marveled at your technical capabilities of sharing your screen and playing that clip.
Oh, dude.
I think that, you've come a long way. I've taught you a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Wait till I get some nanobots to help me too. I'll be much better at it.
Yeah. I mean, then it just happens. You think it happens.
That's right.
Keeps
All
me
right,
on-
Micah. Great
keeps me
being
on
with
the
you
job.
guys tonight. God bless for everybody watching. God bless you guys. Make sure you share, subscribe to the channel, and also follow me on X, where I post all the time now. Hope this was informative. I was gonna say encouraging. Be encouraged. Be encouraged. What did Jesus say? Fear not. Right. In this world you have tribulation, but be of good cheer. He has overcome the world. So, amen. God bless you guys.
God bless.
God bless.